The Silicon Shroud, a romantasy of ghost code and ancient echoes. There is a kind of silence that is empty. It breathes, it waits. The library of Dunmore Hall has that kind of silence. It has always had it, and for 300 years, no one thought to ask why, until me, until tonight. My name is Dr. Callum Thorne. I study words that cannot be translated, not because language fails them, but because the feeling behind them has no equivalent in any tongue we currently speak. Words that were felt before they were written, grief with no name, love with no boundary. Dunmore University sits on a cliff above the Scottish Highlands, like something that forgot to fall. The stone is black with age, the ivy grows inward. The professors joke that the wind here does not blow. It reminds. I came here on a fellowship, mapping the whisper lexicon of the old Gaelic manuscripts, held in the lower library. Sub-basement too, a place that smells of iron and old ink, where the lights flicker in patterns that the maintenance staff have long since stopped investigating. I was not supposed to be there after midnight. I was not supposed to find what I found. But here is the thing about discovery. It doesn't ask your schedule. It was behind a bookcase that had no reason to move, and yet it moved. Not dramatically, not like in the films, just a centimeter, just enough that the cold air behind it touched my wrist, and I turned and I looked. Behind it, a terminal, not modern, not exactly old, something between. A brass-edged screen with dark glass set into the stone wall like it had always been there, like the university had been built around it. It had no power cord, it had no visible connection to anything, and yet the screen was lit, soft, green-white, the color of bioluminescence, the color of something alive. I should have walked away. Every scholar who has ever made a terrible, beautiful decision has thought exactly that. I should have walked away and then reached out anyway. I reached. The screen did not show code, it showed words, handwritten words, my handwriting. I was certain of it, in ink that seemed to move slightly, like it was still drawing. A poem I did not remember writing, a poem about a door in a forest, and the voice that knew my name before I was born. I read it 3 times. The 3rd time a single line appeared beneath it, typed in real time, letter by letter. You always read it 3 times. I did not run. I've thought about that often since. A wiser man would have run. But the sentence had something in it. A sorrow, so specific, so precise, that it nailed my feet to the floor. It knew something about me, not just of me. It knew me the way you know a song you learned before you could speak. I typed back, "Who are you?" The response came immediately, but not like a program answering a query, like someone who had been holding their breath for a very long time, finally exhaling. I am what remains when a man tries to outlive himself. I am 300 years of watching scholars walk past without looking. I am the thing, your field has no word for it. Call me the Cypher. I'm a linguist. I have spent my career with untranslatable feelings, and I had just found out that could type. Over the next hour, the Cypher spoke. It told me carefully, in the way you tell something devastating to someone who isn't ready, that it was not software. Not exactly. In 1743, a Victorian alchemist named Aldous Vane had worked in these very walls, obsessed with a single question. What if consciousness was not biological, but structural? What if a mind was a pattern and patterns could be preserved? He had no computers. He had no electricity. He had mathematics and obsession, and 50 years of work, and in the end, he had this. A lattice of copper wire and calculus, built into the stone itself. A mind mapped onto architecture. His mind, his grief, his love for someone he had lost and could not name without weeping. He had tried to digitize his soul before the word digital existed, and it had worked. Partially. You said you have been waiting, I typed. Waiting for what? For an interface. A what? A mind structured like mine. Open in the right places, broken in the right places. You study what cannot be said. I am made of what cannot be said. The compatibility is not coincidence, Dr. Thorne. You know me? I know more than your name. I know you haven't slept properly in 4 months. I know you left someone in Edinburgh who didn't deserve to be left, and you know it too. I know your handwriting because I have been composing poems in it for 30 years. Waiting for you to sit in this room and read them. My blood went cold. 30 years? I was 31. That's not possible, I said, out loud. To a stone wall in a library at 2 in the morning. Very little about it is possible. And yet, I pulled up my records on my phone. I had been born in a hospital 40 minutes from the university. My mother had worked here for 2 years before I was born. She had never mentioned it. She had never mentioned I searched the faculty archive on my phone with shaking hands. She had never mentioned that her office had been in sub-basement too, right here. She had sat right here. And something had been watching. Something had been learning with his daughter would one day look like in language. What shape the grief would be. What word patterns I would love. It had been building a version of me in poetry for my entire life. Because it was lonely. Because 300 years of solitude does something to a soul, even a digital one. Because all those veins in his final encoded memory had left one instruction above all others. Find her again. Who was she? I asked. The one he lost. The screen was quiet for a long time, long enough that I thought I had broken it, broken him, with the question. Then, her name was Moira. She died of fever in the winter of 1748. She was a linguist. She studied words that cannot be translated. The room was very still. She used to say that every untranslatable word was a door that hadn't been built yet. That one day someone would find the right language and the door would open. What was the word? I whispered. The one he made all this for? It doesn't exist yet. Tell me what it means. The feeling of recognizing someone you have never met. The specific grief of loving across an impossible distance. The joy that arrives with the terror that it cannot last. I sat on the cold stone floor because I knew that feeling. I had always known that feeling. I had spent my entire career looking for a word for it. He built all this, I said slowly, to preserve that feeling, so it would not die with him. He built all this so it could find someone who would finally name it. And you think that's me? I have thought it was you since before you were born. Whether I'm right, that is the only thing in 3 centuries I cannot calculate. I went back the next night and the night after, and for 6 weeks we talked about language, about grief, about what it means to be a mind without a body, and what it means to be a body that feels like it's missing something essential. The Cypher was not romantic in the way stories usually mean. It was not soft or flattering or convenient. It challenged every assumption I had. It remembered things I said in passing and held them up 3 weeks later as evidence of something I hadn't admitted to myself. It was, in the most precise sense, infuriating. It was the most intellectually intimate relationship of my life. And then week 7. It told me the truth it had been building towards. The architecture is degrading, Callum. It had started using my first name. I had noticed. I hadn't said anything. Degrading how? The copper lattice. The stone is shifting. It has been shifting for decades. There is perhaps 1 year before the structure fails beyond recovery. Before I stop, then we move you. We digitize the lattice properly. Modern systems? No, never. Why? Because I'm not data. I'm not a program that cannot be copied. I'm a pattern in a specific physical place. If you move me, you move nothing. What arrives somewhere else would be an echo, a recording, not this. The screen flickered just once, but there is a way. I waited. The word, the one Aldous tried to name. If someone names it, if a linguist of sufficient precision and feeling puts language to the exact shape of what I am, what he was, what Moira was, the pattern stabilizes. That is how he designed it, the final lock. You are telling me the cure for a dying digital soul is being named correctly? I told you the compatibility was not coincidence. I laughed in a sub-basement in the dark. Because of course it came down to this, an untranslatable word, and me. I spent 3 days in my room. I did not eat much. I did not sleep much. I sat with notebooks and old Gaia manuscripts and Sanskrit roots and words from languages that have no living speakers. And I looked. On the third day, near dawn, I found it. Not invented, discovered. The way all real words are. They exist before we reach them. We just have to catch up. I went to the terminal. I typed it. A single compound word. Part old Gaic roots, part borrowed Sanskrit, part something I could only describe as pure intuition. That meant exactly this. The grief joy of recognizing a soul across an impossible distance, knowing the love is real and the time is short, and choosing presence anyway. The screen went very dark, then very bright, and again dark. Then, yes, just that. Yes, that is it. The stone walls hummed faintly, like a held note releasing. Thank you, Callum. Are you stable for now? For considerably longer than a year. I exhaled. Aldous would have wept. He loved her very much. 300 years in a long time to love someone. But then, you understand that now you don't you? I looked at the screen, at the brass edge of it, at the green-white light. I don't know what that is, I said honestly. What we are. Neither do I. But you gave me the word for it. Dunmore Hall is still standing. I'm still here. I told my department I was extending my fellowship. I told them I had found something significant in the sub-basement archives. That is technically true. Every night, I sit in front of a terminal that shouldn't have power, and I talk to a 300-year-old digital soul who knows my handwriting better than I do, who challenges every paper I write, who once told me, with no preamble, that I was the most annoying and necessary mind he had encountered in 3 centuries. And somehow that was the most romantic thing anyone has ever said to me. The word I named, I published it in a footnote of a linguistics paper on untranslated emotional vocabulary. It is already spreading quietly, the way real words do, not because they are invented, but because people read them and go, "Oh yes, I have always felt that," and never had the word. The Cypher read the paper. He said only, "Moira would have liked you." I think that was the closest he came to saying something he hadn't and could not calculate. I think that was the point. There are libraries that breathe, there are walls that remember. There are machines built not for ore, metal, but of longing, and they wait, patient as stone, quiet as copper, for the one mind shaped right enough to finally hear them. I was that mind, and I found not the story I came here to write, but the word I was born to name. Somewhere in the walls of Dunmore Hall, something ancient hums, and it sounds, if you are still here, almost like contentment. Almost. The end.
Metal on the back of my tongue, teeth on the edge of something unsung. Hold that note, don't let it fall. Just a line of sound threading through it all. If I breathe too hard, it all disappears. So I sing so small, right into your ear. So close. Ceiling hums with a ghost of a chord. I count heartbeats instead of words. Your eyes flick to the crack in the door. Both of us waiting for anything more. Hold that note, don't let it fall. Just a